accessible for Chinese or Iranian
It doesn't
protesters.
matter.
No, but no, it's not. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not Elon. It's not Elon blocking it. Tommy, you had a question, Tommy?
That was Tommy.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Tommy.
That was him. Yeah, he was wrong.
Can you address the question of the freedom of speech at Sebastian Gorka here? Because a lot of people are confused that it's a First Amendment issue, what was dumped by Matt Taibbi. The First Amendment concerns government suppression. So anything that happened before January the 20th isn't First Amendment unless it was the Biden administration afterwards. So for those who think that, we've got the smoking gun and they don't need to wait for anything else, could you address that issue, Mr. Musk?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, actually, there are issues if there's election interference before the government, because that is, I think, an issue. It's certainly Twitter. It would appear that Twitter falsely claimed that there was not election interference, but it would.
Right, but that has to do with in-kind contributions. That's a very different kind of thing, and it is criminal. But can you tell us if there will be more smoking guns coming?
Yeah, I think there will be more smoking guns, because the obvious next question is, well, what happened after the election?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's probably the right thing for episode 2, is what happened after the election.
And how long do we have to wait for episode 2?
I don't know. I'll check with Matt.
Elon,
Go ahead. Yeah, Will, just quickly. Will, go ahead, Will.
Thank you, Elon. Apologies if you addressed this earlier. I appreciate how long you've been on this call. What subjects outside of Hunter Biden, by the way, this is Will Kane from Fox News, what subjects outside of Hunter Biden were subject to the most government-induced censorship?
As I said, you may not have heard my earlier comment, but I don't actually, like I said, I've been working on getting Twitter to be healthy and fixing the engine of engineering. I've not been sort of poring over the Twitter files personally. That's sort of been, Matt Taibbi is doing that, and Barry Weiss is going to do it now as well. So anything I say would be somewhat of a, guesswork, really. But so I don't know. There's obviously a lot of questions around Jan 6th. There's questions around COVID. There's a lot of questions, but I think the important thing is that we just get bring daylight to all of these things, and so anything that Twitter has done. And sometimes things, a lot of times Twitter's done things that were just not, it wasn't malicious, it was just foolish. So the things that are
like the nuking people for NPCs, right? For posting NPC memes, thousands of people were banned.
Yeah, exactly.
From just a quick question, with the companies that stopped advertising on Twitter, which I think most of us agree is just not right, has there been any progress since? Have you been in discussions with them? And what are some other strategies to bring in revenue so we depend less on advertisers?
You can hear this. This is Eric Bowling again. I was wondering if you have any knowledge or you can have any proof that there's some indication that a lot of people on the right side of the political aisle lost a ton of followers. I would say from 2015, 2016, all the way through towards the end of 2021. I'll give you anecdotally myself. I lost 80,000 or so, and not until this is literal. Not until you purchased Twitter did I start gaining followers again in a fairly robust manner. Is there any proof of that? Do you have any evidence of that being sort of a plan or a strategy on Twitter's part?
Again, like I said, I have not read the Twitter file, so it's difficult for me to say that. Except, so my understanding is limited, and that's why I would leave it to Matt Taibbi and Barry Weiss and ultimately others. But if I say what is my best guess is that there was a very different standard applied to Republican candidates in the U.S. versus Democrat candidates. So there appears, and I emphasize appears, I'm not saying this is definitely the case, there appears to have been a double standard where uh, where Democrats were not censored and left causes were not censored, but right causes and Republicans were. And it was, and I think this is frankly obvious to anyone who uses Twitter without any expose of Twitter files. It was not even-handed, and it's frankly the behavior that is to be expected from an organization that is based in San Francisco, which is far left. So, um, from their standpoint, it wouldn't seem like that they're being unfair. That from their standpoint, it's simply how they see the world. I mean, I think Matt posted like political contributions of Twitter being over 99% Democrat. So, well, what kind of viewpoint would you expect people to have then? It's the behavior you'd expect from a company that is essentially a distillation of San Francisco politics.
And I hope that
By the way,
when you
just
the
really
information
quick. By the
public,
way,
you know,
I want to
sorry,
make a
I have a question.
suggestion. I want to make
Yeah.
a suggestion real quick. Elon, when you are speaking, we can hear you really well. When you are listening, the background noise from your jet is interfering a little.
Okay, sure.
Can you just mute
He
yourself
needs
when you are
an
not
EV jet.
speaking?
Yeah. So anyway, I have a question. Like, so when
Will
you're,
do.
making the files available to everybody, or rather more people, I would just like to request that, that I don't know, give it to me because I work for Rebel News, and I think we could do a tremendous job covering this as much as anybody else. Really, yeah.
So
So
Tim Cass is trying to come up, by the way, Elon, just to ask you a question. But in the meantime, I just want to go back, and I know that Persistence has a question as well. I'll give you the mic right after Persistence. But one question again, back to the advertisers, Elon. Not sure if you heard it before. Any progress there with the advertisers that stopped advertising on Twitter, which we all agree is just not right, and any other strategies to bring revenue outside of advertising? You're muted, Elon.
Yeah, so so Apple has fully resumed advertising, which is appreciated. Apple is the single biggest advertiser on Twitter, and historically and presently. So, thanks Apple for fully resuming advertising. And I think we're seeing we are starting to see a lot of other advertisers also resume their spending. I think the problem is that they would read all these stories in the media and then think that they were true, and they're not true. And then as it's becoming clear that the media stories about Twitter being some sort of like right-wing hellscape, which it absolutely isn't. And in fact, it is. There are far fewer bots, far fewer trolls, and it's actually, I think, way more fun and interesting. And we're seeing that in the user minutes and in the daily average users. Then advertisers are like, oh, okay, I guess maybe it is safe to get back in the water, and so we are seeing advertisers resume advertising on Twitter. So that's a good sign. I wish it would be faster, but we are seeing them resume. The more concerning factor on the advertising front is just the entire industry-wide drop in advertising, which Twitter is not immune from. So even though advertisers do get back on, the advertising expenditures in general are dropping for all companies. And so it is imperative that Twitter have an alternate revenue source, hence the subscriber revenue, which is just very important for both of the survival and for of Twitter, and to reduce its dependence on advertisers. So yeah, like overall, I think I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. Yeah, so
And I want to. I'll add one point of credit. Like I have no stance. I have nothing against the old executives at Twitter, etc. But very objectively speaking, what you've done in a month, and again, that's purely being objective. What you've done in a month is fucking insane. The amount of progress that you've had and where Twitter is at now in such a short period of time. So not that you need more credit because you're getting a lot here, but I just want to add to it as well. I'll give the mic to the Persistence who's been waiting for a while, and then Spike. Go ahead, Persistence.
Well, thank you, Elon, for making this a popular
the social media. My question is, do we have any information on advertisers threatening to pull money from Twitter if Twitter did not adhere to a policy? And additionally, do we have any information on congressmen or women who have threatened legislation should Twitter not adhere to a certain policy? And last, I was really intrigued by your comment on positivity and negativity in tweets, you saying that positive tweets would go further. And I just wanted to see what would constitute the measurement from Twitter that would make something positive or negative. Thank you.
You're muted, Elon. Oh, you're back.
Yeah, sure. Well, the advertisers, I mean, for the most part, the advertisers are quite rational in that, if especially if you're advertising a friendly product, that you don't want to be sort of, like, let's say you're advertising a Disney movie, you don't want to have like some super negative sort of hate speech, or to the and also a movie or whatever. And you also they don't want to have not safe for work content right next to ads for children toys and stuff like that. So that stuff is quite reasonable, and I agree with that. Advertisers have a right to have their advertising be next to non-advertising content that is consistent with their brand. So that really just means, like, what is not attempting to monetize with advertising content that advertisers are uncomfortable with. So I think in general it's been okay. I mean, I think there has been some overzealous action by activist groups that pressure the advertisers, that then in turn pressure Twitter. And we're trying to sort of, that I thought was somewhat unreasonable. But I think it's going to trend in a good direction going forward. But I'm not sure. But it looks like it's headed in a good direction. Like I said, advertisers are returning to Twitter. Apple's back at full ad spend, and I've had a number of conversations with the advertiser groups, and every time I've had those conversations, the advertisers have responded positively, and I've also just, because they're like, I mean, they're basically they end up reading the sort of mainstream media, and it's like, and then they end up with all the wrong impressions of what's going on. And I said, well, have you tried using Twitter? Do you see these things for yourself? And they're like, actually, it seems fine when we use Twitter. Like, yes, that's because it is fine. And so then, and then I also tell them, like, look, as we try to grow Twitter's user base, if a new user comes on Twitter and then is immediately attacked by trolls and dumped on, they're going to want to leave. So, because who wants to go? It's like going into a party or something and everyone just starts yelling at you. You're going to want to leave that party. So, Twitter does need to be a more welcoming environment for new users. And so the incentives are actually aligned. That if people come on and they see interesting, funny tweets, things that where they learn something new, or it's entertaining, it's funny, it's like, that's the kind of thing that we should see more of, and that's consistent with what most advertisers want, I think, and what Twitter wants in order to grow the user base, and then just generally over time, it's like kind of, people can be, I think, to some degree, choose what sort of experience they are, like, just like you can choose a radio station. Like, some people want to listen to sort of smooth jazz, easy listening, or they may want to go to, pop music, or they want to go to heavy metal thrash, and, to each their own. or if this was, do you want to have like full contact martial arts, or do you want to have, light contact, or do you want to do yoga? And you can decide which one of those, what kind of experience you want. That's going to be important in order to have Twitter appeal to a broad audience. So that's the rough game plan.
Tom, I'll let
Elon,
you
you
got a
had
question, Tom?
mentioned, just wanted to ask really quick. He had mentioned different color check marks for verification for different entities. Was that still going to be part of the new verification process?
So again, like the goal is like to say, how do you convey to people using Twitter as quickly as possible and as clearly as possible what they're seeing. So there will be a gold check mark for commercial organizations, a gray check mark for government, and a blue check mark for verified individuals. And then there will also be an organizational affiliation logo. So like next to your check, if you, let's say, you're a verified user, if you are a professor at Stanford and Stanford is participating in identifying who is a professor, then there would be like a tiny Stanford logo that would appear next to your blue check mark. So then as you're scrolling, it's like you can see, oh, this is actually a Stanford professor, or this person actually does work at Coca-Cola, and there's the clarity there.
Will there be a process for this to apply for an organization for, let's say you're a part of a small news organization and you want to apply for this status. Will it be available to the public, or is this something that's going to be very selective?
No, it will be available to the public. So it's sort of, so it's not going to be like an anointed set of companies. Now, there will be a strong policy against impersonation and deception. So if someone's attempting to deceive users, then their account will be suspended. So that's yeah.
I've got a question here. I'll give it to Tom, just by a pretty notable person that doesn't want to disclose their identity, but it's a simple question. By the way, anyone that has a question, you could DM me. The team is checking all the DMs. The question is plans for crypto Twitter payments, whether it's going to be like WeChat or whether you have plans at all.
Dogecoin.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, hell yeah, Dogecoin to the moon.
Doge to the moon.
Yeah,
I think we do want to have Twitter enable both regular payments and fiat currency, and make it easier to transact with crypto. Yeah.
Okay, I've got another question here from a big YouTuber as well. Elon, one of the first. So they're asking, they want to bring YouTube creators to Twitter. What's your plan with? What's your Twitter creator plan, if there is one?
So, well, for video, we need to upgrade the Twitter system to be able to have longer video, and then enable creators to derive revenue from viewership, which is a combination of advertising and subscription. So these are obviously things that need to happen. Like I said, in order for these to happen, like you could have a wish list a mile long, but if the engine of engineering is not fixed, the wish list is so that's why I am focused on fixing Twitter engineering first and foremost. In the absence of that, you could have a wish. Whatever you wish for cannot be done because the engineering is not working.
Hey, I have a really great suggestion for you, Elon.
And right after Kim, I'll let Tom jump in right after you. Just Tom, sorry for delaying it so much. Go ahead, Kim. Sorry.
Yeah, you know how foreign media is labeled on Twitter often as like Russian-controlled, state-controlled media. Why don't we do the same thing in the US with all of these media organizations that are telling us go to war?
Oh, yeah.
this is all great. Like, why don't we label them as well, U.S. government state media?
No, I think that's a good idea. Because it's like SBF gave so much money to different media organizations that, and then they just write these puff pieces, and it's like, okay, we should be labeling that SBF affiliated media because it is. Um, uh,